If the ocean were a kingdom, you'd probably think the sharks are the kings, the whales are the wise old emperors, and the dolphins are the annoying rich kids who inherited power without earning it. But what if I told you that beneath the waves, the real rulers aren't necessarily the biggest or the most feared? No, the true power players of the deep aren't just apex predators. They're the ones secretly manipulating entire ecosystems from behind the scenes, controlling food chains, shaping landscapes, and deciding which species get to thrive and which ones get to pack their bags and leave town. Welcome to the shadow government of the ocean, where power is measured not in brute strength but in ecosystem influence. These creatures don't just eat, swim, and look cool in documentaries. They engineer their environments, manipulate prey and predators alike, and quietly pull the strings of marine life. Some do it by hunting, some by reshaping the seafloor, and some just by existing. And yet, most of the ocean has no idea they're even in charge. Think of it like this. The lion may be the king of the jungle, but it's the termites and earthworms keeping the whole place from collapsing. In the same way, some of the most powerful creatures in the sea aren't the loudest, the biggest, or the most feared, but the ones that influence everything without anyone noticing. And if that's not the ultimate flex, I don't know what is. If you asked the average person who the ocean's boss is, they'd probably say great white sharks or orcas, because Hollywood has trained us to believe that power is all about having the sharpest teeth and the most dramatic slow-motion attack sequences. But nature doesn't care about Hollywood's rules. In reality, power in the ocean is not about being the biggest or the strongest. It's about control. It's about how much you influence everything around you, how many species depend on your existence, and whether removing you from the equation would send the whole ecosystem into chaos, like a Jenga tower collapsing in slow motion. Let's look at some of the ocean's real rulers, the ones that don't just survive but secretly pull the strings. First up, we have the tiger sharks. At first glance, they look like your typical apex predator type, sleek, terrifying, and capable of ruining a sea turtle's day in under 10 seconds. But here's the twist. These guys aren't just hunters, they're ocean managers. Entire seagrass meadows exist because of them. Why? Because without tiger sharks keeping sea turtles and dugongs in check, those herbivores would mow down entire seagrass ecosystems like an all-you-can-eat salad bar, which would throw the entire system into chaos. Basically, tiger sharks aren't just eating prey, they're preventing an underwater apocalypse. Then we have the octopuses, who are less like rulers and more like manipulative puppet masters. Octopuses don't just hunt, they actively change the behavior of entire fish populations. They've been caught on camera punching fish that get in their way. Yes, actual sucker punches. And their intelligence allows them to control their hunting partners, outwit predators, and escape from just about anything. An octopus in the ecosystem is like a hacker in a bank vault. Nobody is safe. And then there's the sperm whale. You might think of them as just big, sleepy-looking deep-sea hunters, but they control the entire deep ocean ecosystem in ways that make Wall Street look tame. These massive creatures regulate squid populations, and without them, the squid would rise up and take over the ocean like an alien invasion. And let's not even get started on their poop. Yes, sperm whale poop is one of the most valuable commodities in the entire ocean. It fertilizes plankton, which in turn feeds small fish, which in turn feed bigger fish, which in turn keep the entire ocean alive. So in a way, sperm whales don't just rule the ocean, they fertilize its economy. Then we have the king crabs, the ocean's equivalent of an unchecked real estate developer. These crustacean bulldozers reshape the seabed by plowing through whatever they want, like a toddler wrecking a sandcastle. Their impact is so massive that scientists have found entire regions of the seafloor transformed because of their relentless movement. Imagine a construction company that builds entire cities, but also destroys everything in its path without a second thought. That's a king crab. And let's not forget the pufferfish, who may look like tiny, balloon-shaped weirdos, but they have one of the most unexpected influences on the ocean floor. Male pufferfish create intricate mandala-like patterns in the sand to attract mates, and these designs don't just look pretty, they actually change the structure of the seabed, influencing how sand and sediment are distributed. Essentially, pufferfish are like tiny, obsessive artists who accidentally reshape the landscape while trying to impress a date. So what makes these creatures the shadow rulers of the ocean? Simple. It's not about how much they eat, how sharp their teeth are, or how terrifying they look. It's about how much they influence everything around them. They are the ones keeping ecosystems from collapsing, preventing population explosions, shaping entire landscapes, and controlling marine life in ways that most people don't even realize. And here's the kicker. Many of them aren't even apex predators. Some don't even have teeth. Some are tiny. But the power of an animal isn't about its size. It's about how much chaos would unfold if you removed it from the picture. A world without sharks? The ocean turns into an overgrown mess of dying fish and sick ecosystems. A world without whales? The deep sea collapses under squid domination. A world without octopuses? The fish get cocky, and nobody is around to punch them into submission. The ocean's real power lies in its engineers, enforcers, and unseen influencers, the ones who shape life beneath the waves without anyone realizing it. And in the next chapters, we're diving deep into the shadow rulers that quietly control everything. One bite, one punch, or one perfectly crafted sand circle at a time. If the ocean had a mafia boss, it wouldn't be the great white shark, the orca, or even the terrifying deep-sea creatures that look like they crawled straight out of an H.P. Lovecraft fever dream. No, the real underworld ruler of the sea is none other than the tiger shark, a predator so perfectly designed for dominance that it doesn't need brute force to control its empire. Instead, it rules through fear, strategic intimidation, and an uncanny ability to keep the ocean from turning into an ecological dumpster fire. Now, when most people hear tiger shark, they imagine a mindless eating machine, chomping on anything that moves. And to be fair, these sharks do have one of the most hilariously chaotic diets in the animal kingdom. Scientists have found everything from sea turtles to license plates to, yes, full-grown birds inside their stomachs. But beneath that reputation as an aquatic garbage disposal lies something far more important. Tiger sharks aren't just hunters. They're ecosystem architects, enforcers, and the unsung heroes of the seagrass meadows. Yes, you heard that right. Tiger sharks, the same creatures responsible for some of the most dramatic moments in nature documentaries, are actually key players in protecting underwater forests, which, by the way, store more carbon than the Amazon rainforest. And if you think a shark maintaining a lawn sounds ridiculous, buckle up, because this story is about to get weirder. Imagine a vast underwater meadow, stretching as far as the eye can see, swaying gently with the ocean currents. This isn't just a pretty backdrop for sea turtles and dugongs. This is a high-stakes battleground where an ongoing war is fought between two factions: the herbivores, who want an all-you-can-eat buffet, and the tiger sharks, who are the bouncers making sure nobody overstays their welcome. On one side, we have sea turtles and dugongs, adorable, slow-moving vegetarians who spend their days munching on seagrass like underwater cows. At first glance, they seem innocent enough, but don't be fooled. These guys are ravenous eating machines. A single green sea turtle can devour enough seagrass in one day to fill a small pickup truck. And dugongs, also known as sea cows, can clear out entire patches like a herd of underwater lawnmowers on steroids. Left unchecked, they would turn thriving seagrass meadows into barren wastelands faster than you can say eco-collapse. This is where the tiger shark enters the scene, not as a merciless killer, but as an ecosystem regulator. Just the presence of tiger sharks keeps herbivores in check. Sea turtles and dugongs know that lurking somewhere in the shadows is a shark with a mouthful of serrated knives, and that knowledge alone changes everything. Instead of lazily grazing in one place until an entire meadow is destroyed, herbivores are forced to keep moving, never staying in one spot too long. The result? Seagrass gets time to recover, meadows stay lush, and the entire ecosystem thrives. This is called the ecology of fear, and it's one of nature's most effective tools for balance. Tiger sharks don't have to kill all the time to control the ecosystem. They just have to exist. Even a single shadow gliding through the water is enough to send turtles and dugongs scrambling for cover, preventing them from overgrazing and accidentally triggering an underwater famine. Now, let's talk about why seagrass is a big deal. Most people are obsessed with saving rainforests, which, fair, they're kind of important. But very few realize that seagrass meadows are even better at capturing carbon than tropical forests. These underwater meadows can store carbon at rates up to 35 times faster than rainforests. That's right. Seagrass isn't just salad for sea cows. It's a global climate warrior, absorbing CO2 and helping to slow down climate change. Without it, the ocean would struggle to regulate carbon, leading to even bigger environmental disasters. But here's the kicker. If seagrass gets destroyed, all that stored carbon gets released back into the ocean, creating a feedback loop of climate chaos. And guess what happens when tiger sharks disappear? The herbivores go wild, overgrazing meadows until they collapse. releasing millions of tons of stored carbon and turning the ocean into an acidic nightmare. So in a weird roundabout way, tiger sharks are actually fighting climate change. Who knew that one of the ocean's most feared predators was also a key player in saving the planet? Unfortunately, tiger sharks are in trouble. Overfishing, shark finning, and habitat destruction have led to a dramatic decline in their numbers, and the consequences are already being felt. In places where tiger shark populations have dropped, seagrass meadows are collapsing at an alarming rate. Without their enforcer, turtles and dugongs graze unchecked, turning thriving ecosystems into underwater deserts. And when seagrass meadows die, the ripple effect spreads far beyond the ocean. Carbon levels rise, fisheries collapse, and countless marine species lose their habitat. Some scientists have compared this situation to what happens when wolves are removed from a forest. Without wolves, deer populations explode, leading to overgrazing, deforestation, and ecological disaster. Tiger sharks are the ocean's wolves, and removing them throws everything off balance. The irony? While humans have spent decades demonizing sharks, they're actually one of the most important forces keeping the ocean alive. People fear sharks, but they should be terrified of what happens if sharks disappear. It's easy to think of predators as villains, but nature doesn't work that way. In reality, apex predators are the unsung heroes that maintain balance. Without them, ecosystems collapse, species suffer, and the entire food chain crumbles. Tiger sharks aren't just hunters. They're architects, regulators, and enforcers of an ecosystem that affects everything from sea turtles to climate change. They don't just shape marine life, they shape the very fabric of the ocean itself. And yet, despite all this, tiger sharks remain one of the most misunderstood creatures in the sea. They're feared, hunted, and even portrayed as villains in movies, all while they work tirelessly to keep our oceans from falling apart. So next time someone tells you that sharks are mindless killing machines, remind them that without tiger sharks, the ocean would be an overgrazed wasteland. Climate change would accelerate, and countless marine species would vanish. In other words, tiger sharks aren't just kings of the ocean, they're its last line of defense. And if that's not worthy of respect, I don't know what is. At the end of the day, tiger sharks don't just rule with their teeth. They rule with their presence, influence, and ability to keep nature in check. The scariest thing about them isn't their bite, it's what happens if they disappear. So next time you see a tiger shark gliding silently through the water, remember, it's not just a predator, it's an ecosystem guardian, a seagrass kingpin, and possibly one of the most underappreciated climate warriors on Earth. And if the turtles and dugongs had a vote? Well, let's just say they'd rather the sharks stay distracted with license plates and garbage. If the ocean had a secret intelligence agency, octopuses wouldn't just be agents. They'd be the head of the department, the spies in the field, and the masterminds pulling the strings from the shadows. While sharks rely on raw power and whales wield their sheer size to control the seas, octopuses use something far more sinister: psychological manipulation, deception, and an uncanny ability to mess with the minds of both predators and prey alike. Forget the idea of a mindless, squishy sea creature. The octopus is a shape-shifting, brain-powered menace that doesn't just hunt its prey, it controls it. It doesn't just survive, it outsmarts, outmaneuvers, and outright humiliates anything that dares cross its path. Some animals dominate ecosystems by eating everything in sight. The octopus, it rules through fear, psychological warfare, and the occasional well-placed sucker punch to an unsuspecting fish. To understand how octopuses manipulate the ocean, we need to acknowledge something truly unsettling. They're basically aliens. And no, that's not just something conspiracy theorists say when they run out of Bigfoot theories. Scientifically speaking, octopuses are so genetically bizarre that researchers have legitimately questioned whether they evolved on the same timeline as the rest of Earth's creatures. Their brains aren't just in their heads, they have a mini-brain in each of their 8 arms, allowing them to process information independently. Imagine having 8 extra brains dedicated to multitasking, and now you see why they're the ultimate underwater manipulators. Their intelligence is legendary. Scientists have documented octopuses unscrewing jars from the inside, escaping high-security aquariums like tiny Houdinis, and even stealing fish from fishermen's traps just for fun. One particularly mischievous octopus in a New Zealand aquarium figured out how to short-circuit the facility's lighting system by climbing out of its tank at night and squirting jets of water at the power outlets. If that doesn't scream criminal mastermind, I don't know what does. And while intelligence alone is terrifying, octopuses take it one step further. They are masters of disguise, deception, and straight-up trolling. Thanks to their camouflage abilities, they can morph into their surroundings instantly, changing both color and texture to blend in with coral, sand, or even mimic other animals. 1 second, it's a harmless piece of rock. The next, it's wrapping its tentacles around an unsuspecting fish's face, like a scene out of a horror movie. Octopuses have perfected the art of controlling other creatures without them even realizing it. One of their biggest tricks, strategic hunting manipulation. Many octopus species don't just hunt alone, they recruit hunting partners, usually fish like groupers and wrasses. The idea is simple. The fish chase prey out of hiding, and the octopus ambushes them from unexpected angles. On paper, it sounds like a fair partnership, until you realize the octopus actively manipulates the situation to get the best deal for itself. First, it positions itself in a way that lets it strike first. If a fish is getting too greedy or too smart, the octopus delivers a strategic punch. Yes, an actual sucker punch to the face, to remind them who's in charge. This isn't speculation. Scientists have video evidence of octopuses throwing precision jabs at fish, seemingly just to keep them in line. And here's the best part. Sometimes the octopus doesn't even benefit from the punch. It just does it out of spite. Imagine working as a team, only to have your partner randomly smack you in the face because they didn't like how things were going. That's the octopus method. If you're not playing by its rules, you're getting sucker punched into submission. And that's just the beginning. Octopuses also intimidate, confuse, and outright bully other animals into submission. They use their color-changing abilities to send threatening signals, their tentacles to manipulate movement, and their ability to squeeze into impossibly tight spaces to pop out at just the right moment to terrify prey. The true brilliance of the octopus isn't just that it can outthink its own prey, it's that it can outthink entire ecosystems. Take the case of the mimic octopus, a creature so deviously intelligent that it doesn't just blend in with the environment, it pretends to be other dangerous animals. When threatened, it can take the form of a poisonous lionfish, a deadly sea snake, or even a flatfish, fooling predators into backing off. It doesn't need to be venomous. It just needs to convince everything around it that attacking would be a terrible idea. Other octopus species take a more aggressive approach. The larger Pacific striped octopus has been observed using a technique so creepy it should be illegal. It stalks prey, extends one long tentacle, and gently taps them on the back, just to watch them panic. This bizarre behavior is the marine equivalent of tapping someone's shoulder in a dark alley and then disappearing when they turn around. The sheer psychological terror is enough to make small fish dart away in the wrong direction, straight into the waiting arms of the octopus. Even predators fear them. Many sharks have made the mistake of underestimating octopuses, only to get mercilessly strangled into unconsciousness by their 8-armed adversary. Divers have recorded octopuses grabbing onto sharks' faces, cutting off their vision, clogging their gills, and essentially forcing them into a panicked retreat. It's like watching a tiny martial artist disable a 300-pound opponent with pure technique. For all their intelligence, octopuses rarely get the credit they deserve for shaping the ocean's ecosystem. Many people still see them as just weird sea creatures, rather than the ecosystem manipulators they truly are. But what happens when these psychological warlords disappear? Without octopuses, entire marine food chains would lose their balance. Many smaller fish populations would skyrocket, leading to overcompetition and resource depletion. Meanwhile, predators that depend on octopuses for food, like certain shark species, would suffer from population declines, leading to even more imbalance. Coral reef ecosystems, already under threat from climate change and pollution, would take yet another hit from the loss of one of their most important hunters. In other words, without octopuses, the ocean would be dumber, less organized, and significantly more chaotic. At the end of the day, octopuses are proof that intelligence beats brute strength. They don't have armored shells, venomous fangs, or massive size. Instead, they have brains that work at a level most creatures, and let's be honest, some humans, could only dream of. They don't just survive in the ocean, they manipulate it. They change fish behavior, intimidate predators, alter entire food chains, and even mess with scientists just for fun. They are both the ocean's tricksters and its secret overlords, controlling ecosystems not through violence, but through sheer intelligence, strategy, and the occasional well-placed punch to the face. So, next time you think about the ocean's most powerful creatures, forget the sharks, the whales, and the deep-sea monsters. The real rulers of the underwater world aren't the biggest, strongest, or fastest. They're the ones with 8 arms, 3 hearts, and an IQ that could put most of us to shame. And if you're ever snorkeling and you feel something tap you on the shoulder, well, let's just say you better hope it's just the current. If the deep ocean were a kingdom, then the sperm whale wouldn't just be the ruler. It would be the untouchable, battle-scarred warlord that enforces law and order with thunderous sonic blasts and a never-ending appetite for calamari. It is the largest toothed predator on Earth, a creature so massive that it makes a school bus look like a children's toy. It roams the abyss with an air of quiet dominance, patrolling the depths where light dares not enter. But while other apex predators prefer to chase fast-moving fish or terrorize the shallows, the sperm whale's true battleground lies in the cold, black, pressurized world of the deep sea, where it engages in an eternal, nightmarish war against an army of giant squid. Unlike other top predators that use teeth, claws, or sheer speed, the sperm whale fights its battles in eerie silence, diving thousands of feet below the surface, where no human could survive unprotected. It does not hunt like a shark with sharp attacks and splashing fury. Instead, it descends into an inky void, vanishing from sight before ambushing its prey with the force of a submarine torpedo. But this is not just an ordinary predator-prey relationship. The sperm whale's insatiable hunger for squid doesn't just fuel its massive body, it literally keeps the deep-sea ecosystem from spiraling into complete madness. Without these giants, the squid would rise, unchecked, in an apocalyptic takeover that would turn the deep ocean into a dystopian nightmare of writhing tentacles and chaos. And, as if that weren't enough, sperm whales also play a direct role in sustaining the ocean itself, in ways that might make you rethink everything you know about marine biology. So, strap in, because the sperm whale's reign is more than just a story about the biggest predator in the deep. It's a tale of squid warfare, global climate influence, and the surprising power of whale poop. Every day, a single sperm whale devours hundreds of squid, racking up a body count that would make any horror movie villain jealous. And this is no small feat, because some of these squid are absolute monsters. The giant squid, a deep-sea cryptid so elusive that scientists had only seen it alive a handful of times until recently, is one of the primary items on the sperm whale's menu. Now imagine for a moment what this means. You have a massive 50-ton predator engaging in deep-sea combat with a tentacled leviathan that can grow longer than a bus. This is a real-life kaiju battle, a clash of titans happening miles below the surface beyond human eyes. The only evidence we have of these legendary battles comes from two sources: the scars on sperm whales, massive suction cup battle wounds, sometimes as large as dinner plates, marking the whales like badges of honor. The stomach contents of dead sperm whales, which often contain beaks of giant squid, the only indigestible part of these cephalopods, accumulating like macabre trophies. But here's where things get even crazier. If sperm whales didn't eat these squid, the consequences for the ocean would be catastrophic. Squid, unlike fish, don't have the slow, methodical life cycles of other deep-sea creatures. They breed rapidly, grow fast, and will happily eat anything, including each other. Without sperm whales keeping them in check, squid populations would explode uncontrollably, leading to an ecological disaster where these hungry, overpopulated cephalopods strip the deep sea of everything in their path. If left unchecked, squid would take over entire ecosystems, outcompeting fish, destabilizing the food web, and turning the deep sea into a dystopian, cephalopod-ruled nightmare. The sperm whale's appetite isn't just personal survival, it's damage control. By consuming squid in massive quantities, it prevents the deep ocean from becoming an apocalyptic, tentacle-filled horror show. Most predators rely on stealth, speed, or sheer brute force to catch their prey. The sperm whale, however, hunts with sound, a biological superweapon that makes it one of the most terrifying predators on the planet. Armed with the most powerful biological sonar in existence, sperm whales emit bursts of clicking sounds so loud they can stun prey from a distance. These clicks, known as codas, can reach volumes of over 230 decibels, louder than a jet engine, loud enough to physically shock and disorient smaller squid. Imagine trying to escape, only to have your brain scrambled by an invisible force field of noise. That's how sperm whales operate. By using this biosonar, they map out the pitch-black void of the deep ocean with pinpoint precision, detecting the faintest movement of squid below. Once a target is identified, the whale descends in eerie silence, waiting for the perfect moment to strike. Then, boom, it inhales its victim whole, using its massive vacuum-like mouth to suck in squid by the dozen. But while their sonar-based hunting tactics are already impressive, sperm whales also do something that might just make them one of the most important creatures on Earth, and it all comes down to their poop. Most apex predators kill and consume, but the sperm whale goes a step further by actively contributing to the survival of marine life in an entirely unexpected way. And it all starts with floating poop. Unlike most waste that sinks to the seafloor, sperm whale poop is light and rich in iron, meaning it floats near the surface instead of vanishing into the abyss. This isn't just a fun fact, it's one of the most important processes in ocean ecology. Why? Because iron is essential for plankton growth, and plankton, tiny though they may be, are the foundation of the entire marine food web. Without enough iron, plankton populations crash. When plankton populations crash, so does everything else. Fish, whales, seabirds, the whole system collapses. But thanks to sperm whales, the ocean gets a steady supply of iron-rich fertilizer, allowing plankton to thrive, which in turn supports fish populations, larger marine animals, and even influences the global climate by absorbing CO2 from the atmosphere. Scientists have calculated that whale poop fertilization is so effective that sperm whales indirectly remove hundreds of thousands of tons of carbon from the air each year. In other words, these massive squid-hunting giants aren't just keeping the deep ocean in check, they're literally helping fight climate change. Sperm whales don't just dominate the deep sea, they control the balance of entire ecosystems. They prevent squid from overrunning the ocean, use sonic superpowers to hunt with terrifying efficiency, and even play a role in global climate regulation through their nutrient-rich waste. And yet, despite their importance to the ocean, sperm whales have been hunted to near extinction in the past, targeted for their valuable oil-rich heads. Today, they still face threats from ship collisions, noise pollution, and climate change, all of which jeopardize the role they play in maintaining the ocean's delicate balance. The sperm whale isn't just an apex predator. It's an ecosystem guardian, an underwater warlord, and a climate engineer all rolled into one. If anything, humans should be thanking them for keeping the ocean from turning into a squid-infested hellscape. So next time you see a sperm whale, remember, it's not just a big, sleepy-looking giant of the deep. It's a highly strategic, cephalopod-crushing, planet-saving powerhouse. If the ocean had a construction mafia, it would be run by king crabs, the leggy, armored bulldozers of the deep. These guys don't just scuttle around minding their own business like some of their less influential crustacean cousins. No, king crabs are the reckless, unapologetic wrecking balls of the sea, reshaping the ocean floor with every clawed step they take. They don't care about your delicate ecosystems, your carefully balanced biodiversity, or the fragile communities of sea sponges and coral. They just plow through everything like a herd of bulldozers that forgot they had brakes. These armored gangsters don't just exist in the ocean. They dominate, expand, and remodel it like an overzealous city planner who's been given way too much power. But here's the twist. While their destruction spells disaster for some species, it creates new opportunities for others, reshaping entire landscapes in ways that scientists never expected. And as if things weren't chaotic enough, climate change is giving these crabs even more turf to conquer, pushing them into territories they were never supposed to invade. So buckle up. This isn't just a story about crabs minding their own business. This is about an invasion, an accidental ecosystem revolution, and the unintended consequences of turning the ocean floor into an all-you-can-eat buffet of destruction. Most animals have some kind of respect for their surroundings. They build nests, burrow carefully, or simply float around, leaving minimal damage in their wake. King crabs, on the other hand, have all the grace of a drunk demolition crew. They move in massive groups, trawling along the ocean floor, claws clicking like an army marching into battle. Unlike lobsters, which are solitary and prefer to skulk around in rocky hideouts, king crabs are pack animals, and when they migrate, they do so in swarms that can number in the thousands. Picture a red tide of spiky armored tanks rolling over the seabed, leaving nothing but chaos in their wake. Every time they march through, they kick up sediment, overturn rocks, and wipe out slow-moving creatures that don't get out of their way fast enough. They don't just eat, they crush, displace, and completely alter the structure of the seabed. The worst part, they don't do this on purpose. They aren't actively trying to be villains. They're just naturally destructive, like tiny clawed Godzillas rampaging through an underwater city. And while this might sound like an environmental catastrophe, and for some species it definitely is, there's an unexpected silver lining to all this chaos. It turns out that not all destruction is bad. Yes, king crabs bulldoze delicate ecosystems, rip apart seabed communities, and generally behave like oceanic wrecking balls. But by doing so, they open up space for new species to move in, triggering a cycle of destruction and renewal. Think of it like a forest fire, devastating in the moment, but creating opportunities for new growth. As king crabs plow through the seabed, they remove slow-growing corals, wipe out sedentary sea sponges, and disturb everything that's been sitting in place for centuries. But in the process, they free up real estate for faster-growing, more adaptable species that thrive in disturbed environments. For example, studies have found that certain fish species actually benefit from king crab activity, as they scavenge the leftovers from the crab's destructive feasts. Newly overturned sediment allows fresh nutrients to circulate, attracting plankton, which in turn supports a different set of marine creatures. In some cases, the presence of king crabs has even created new, unexpected habitats where other species have learned to adapt and flourish. So while some creatures suffer from their presence, others seize the opportunity, thriving in the newly altered landscape. It's the ultimate case of one species' disaster being another species' golden opportunity. As if king crabs weren't already wreaking enough havoc, climate change has turned them into an even bigger problem by giving them new territories to conquer. For millions of years, there was one place king crabs couldn't reach: Antarctica. The icy waters of the Southern Ocean were simply too cold, keeping these clawed invaders locked out of one of the last untouched marine ecosystems on Earth. But thanks to rising ocean temperatures, that frozen barrier is breaking down. And guess who's moving in? That's right, the crab mafia. King crabs have recently been discovered creeping into Antarctic waters, and the consequences could be catastrophic. The seafloor communities of Antarctica have existed without large, clawed predators for millions of years. Most of the species there, starfish, sponges, slow-moving sea cucumbers, are completely unequipped to deal with an invasion of armor-plated wrecking machines. Scientists are already predicting a massive ecological shift, with king crabs outcompeting native species, wiping out entire habitats and fundamentally changing one of the most unique ecosystems on the planet. And the worst part? There's no way to stop them. Unlike other invasive species, which humans can sometimes control through culling or relocation, king crabs are virtually untouchable. They live too deep, they reproduce too quickly, and they travel in numbers too large to be meaningfully removed. Once they take over an ecosystem, there's no going back. For better or worse, king crabs are reshaping the ocean. Their bulldozing ways destroy ecosystems, but in doing so, they create entirely new ones. Their invasive expansions are wiping out ancient seabed communities, but at the same time, they're opening up new evolutionary pathways for species that can adapt to the chaos. They don't rule the ocean like sharks or whales. They don't operate like octopuses, with brains the size of their bodies and devious hunting strategies. They don't need to. Their power lies in their sheer numbers, their brute force destruction, and their ability to change marine landscapes just by existing. They don't ask permission. They don't consider the consequences. They simply march forward, forever altering the seafloor in ways we're only beginning to understand. And as they expand into new, warmer waters, one thing is certain: they're not going to stop anytime soon. The bulldozer mob is on the move, and the ocean will never be the same. In a world where sharks dominate with sheer terror, whales command the depths with their gargantuan size, and octopuses manipulate the food chain with eight-armed genius, you'd think that power in the ocean belongs only to the biggest and baddest. But then, along comes the pufferfish, a tiny, unassuming little ball of surprises, proving that you don't need size or brute strength to control your domain. You just need to be a ridiculously talented underwater artist. Yes, while most fish rely on speed, camouflage, or some level of bitey aggression to secure their place in the marine hierarchy, the pufferfish has a completely different approach. It doesn't chase, it doesn't intimidate, and it certainly doesn't win fights. Instead, it engineers the ocean floor, creates hypnotic works of art, and bends the laws of attraction itself to manipulate its surroundings. And what does it use to accomplish all of this? A little bit of geometry, a whole lot of patience, and an uncanny ability to make the seabed its personal art gallery. This is the story of how a fish no bigger than a grapefruit has become an architect, designer, and ecosystem influencer, all without lifting a fin in aggression. For years, divers exploring the shallow waters off the coast of Japan kept noticing something bizarre on the ocean floor. Massive, symmetrical circles intricately carved into the sand. These weren't small patterns either. Some were more than 6 feet in diameter, with ridges, grooves, and spirals so precise that they looked like something made by an alien civilization that had taken an interest in seafloor landscaping. Marine biologists, being the naturally curious people they are, decided to investigate, half expecting to find some weird current phenomenon at play, or at the very least, a species of hyper-intelligent crabs that had taken up interior decorating. Instead, what they found completely changed our understanding of what it means to be a small fish in a big ocean. It wasn't aliens. It wasn't some ancient, mysterious force of nature. It was a tiny pufferfish, working alone, tirelessly carving these intricate structures into the seabed with nothing but its fins. And the reason? Romance. Yes, this wasn't just some fish passing the time with an elaborate sandcastle project. This was the pufferfish equivalent of a Tinder profile. These breathtaking mandalas weren't just for show. They were carefully crafted love nests, designed to attract a mate. For a female pufferfish, choosing a mate is a serious decision. She's not just looking for the most aggressive suitor or the biggest fish in the sea. She's judging architectural finesse. The better the design, the more impressed she is. Male pufferfish, knowing full well that their romantic future depends entirely on their ability to sculpt sand, devote weeks of their lives to crafting the perfect circular masterpiece. They do this by swimming tirelessly in spirals, using their tiny bodies to push sand into intricate ridges, valleys, and radial patterns that grow more elaborate by the day. And this isn't just mindless digging, it's advanced engineering. The design of the circles isn't random. The ridges alter the flow of water over the sand, helping trap finer sediment in the center, which, conveniently, is where the female lays her eggs if she deems the structure worthy. In other words, the male pufferfish is essentially constructing an underwater nursery, complete with optimized hydrodynamics, just to impress a mate. It's the most extreme case of if you build it, they will come that nature has ever seen. And it works. The more symmetrical, well-designed, and aesthetically pleasing the structure, the higher the chances that a female will gracefully swim in, inspect the craftsmanship, and decide that yes, this particular male is worthy of continuing his genetic legacy. If she's unimpressed, she swims away, leaving the poor artist to sulk and start over from scratch. Because love is cruel, even in the ocean. But these sandy mandalas aren't just elaborate dating apps for fish. As it turns out, pufferfish are doing a lot more than securing their romantic future. They're actively reshaping the seafloor in ways that influence entire marine ecosystems. By constantly digging, sculpting, and modifying the sand, pufferfish change the texture of the seabed, making it more hospitable for other marine life. The fine sediment that gets trapped in the center of the patterns? It provides the perfect nursery ground for plankton, small crustaceans, and other organisms that wouldn't normally settle in such exposed environments. Over time, these temporary structures influence the local food web, creating microhabitats that support other species. Small fish are drawn to the disturbed sand looking for food, which in turn attracts larger predators. One tiny pufferfish's love project can end up supporting an entire community of marine creatures, all because one little fish wanted to impress a girl. But that's not the only way they alter their environment. Because pufferfish frequently stake out and defend territories, their activity prevents overgrowth of certain algae and invasive organisms, helping maintain balance in reef ecosystems. Without them, some areas would become overrun with unchecked algae growth, potentially suffocating corals and reducing biodiversity. So while pufferfish might not look like ecosystem engineers in the traditional sense, their meticulous sand sculpting and territorial behavior end up shaping marine landscapes in ways that benefit countless other species. Now you might be thinking, wow, what a lovely peaceful fish, a true creative soul in a sea full of chaos. But don't let the artsy aesthetic fool you. Pufferfish are secretly packing one of the most toxic punches in the ocean. Their bodies contain tetrodotoxin, a neurotoxin that is 1,200 times more lethal than cyanide. Just a single pufferfish carries enough toxin to kill 30 adult humans, and there is no known antidote. It's the marine equivalent of a tiny, adorable artist casually carrying a nuclear warhead in their back pocket. And while you might think that would make them untouchable, humans, being the risk-loving species we are, still try to eat them. In Japan, the dish fugu, made from pufferfish, is considered a delicacy, despite the fact that one poorly prepared bite could turn your dinner into your last meal. Only highly trained chefs, licensed by the government, are allowed to prepare it, and yet people still occasionally end up in the hospital, or worse, because of a single miscalculation. So while pufferfish might be architects, engineers, and ocean influencers, They are also living, swimming, biological weapons, proving once again that nature has a truly twisted sense of humor. Pufferfish might not be the biggest, strongest, or most intimidating creatures in the sea, but they are proof that intelligence, patience, and creativity can be just as powerful as brute force. Through sheer dedication to art and engineering, they control their environment, influence ecosystems, and even manipulate the laws of attraction. And while the ocean is full of apex predators and deep-sea warlords, sometimes the true rulers are the ones who understand that sometimes all it takes to shape the world is a little bit of creativity, a lot of patience, and the determination to build something beautiful. And if that doesn't make them one of the most unexpectedly powerful creatures in the sea, I don't know what does. When people think about the rulers of the ocean, they usually imagine massive, toothy apex predators, the ones that get all the Hollywood attention, with dramatic slow-motion shots and ominous soundtracks. Sharks, whales, giant squid, basically anything that looks like it could end your swimming career in under 3 seconds. But the truth is, not all power in the ocean comes from terror, size, or brute strength. Sometimes the real enforcers, the true ecological guardians, are the ones nobody talks about. They don't have razor-sharp teeth, they don't hunt in terrifying coordinated attacks, and they certainly don't get the kind of blockbuster movie treatment that makes people afraid to go into the water. But without them, entire ecosystems would collapse faster than a badly built sandcastle in high tide. These are the hidden enforcers of the ocean, the quiet but powerful keepers of marine balance, working behind the scenes to make sure the ocean doesn't turn into an apocalyptic wasteland. And leading the charge, a fish that poops sand and a fluffy sea mammal with a relentless appetite. Yes, you read that correctly. If you've ever walked barefoot on a stunning white sand beach, feeling the warm, powdery grains between your toes, take a moment to appreciate the source of that sand. Because chances are it didn't come from the erosion of rocks or ancient geological processes. It came from fish poop. And not just any fish. Parrotfish, the unappreciated construction workers of the ocean. Parrotfish are like a bizarre fusion of a marine bulldozer and a recycling plant. They spend their days scraping algae off coral with their powerful beak-like mouths, grinding the hard coral skeleton as they go. And what happens after all that chomping? Well, the coral passes through their digestive system and exits as sand, and not just a little bit. A single large parrotfish can produce up to 200 pounds of sand per year. Multiply that by an entire population, and you realize that some of the most breathtaking tropical beaches exist because a bunch of fish are constantly pooping sand out of their butts. But their role as beach architects is just a side gig. Their real job, the thing that makes them essential to the survival of coral reefs, is their relentless appetite for algae. Algae, when left unchecked, grows over coral, suffocating it like an overgrown weed garden taking over a house. If parrotfish weren't constantly munching away, coral reefs would be choked to death, losing their ability to support the diverse array of marine life that depends on them. So while sharks might get all the credit for being the top of the food chain, it's actually parrotfish that are keeping the reefs alive, ensuring that corals can grow, fish populations can thrive, and tourists can continue taking selfies on their pristine, fish poop-generated beaches. Meanwhile, in the colder waters of the world, another unassuming creature holds the fate of entire marine forests in its tiny, adorable paws: the sea otter. Now, at first glance, sea otters seem like they should have no real impact on ocean ecosystems. They're small, fluffy, and spend most of their time floating around like lazy little fur-covered rafts, holding hands in heart-melting displays of cuteness. But beneath that innocent teddy bear-like appearance lies an absolute menace to sea urchins. Yes, sea urchins, the spiky, slow-moving vacuum cleaners of the ocean floor. You see, sea urchins have a dangerous habit. If left unchecked, they will devour entire kelp forests, turning thriving underwater jungles into lifeless, algae-covered wastelands. They don't stop eating, they don't care about the consequences, and they reproduce like an unstoppable horde of medieval plagues. Enter the sea otter, a fluffy, urchin-hunting enforcer of ecological justice. Sea otters absolutely love eating sea urchins. They crack them open with rocks, a behavior so rare in marine mammals that it makes them one of the few animals capable of using tools. They are so dedicated to their urchin hunting duties that one single otter can consume up to 25% of its body weight in food every single day. That's like a human eating 40 burgers a day just to maintain weight. And their insatiable appetite for sea urchins is what keeps kelp forests alive. Because every time sea otter populations decline, whether due to overhunting, pollution, or environmental changes, the urchins go wild, eating their way through kelp forests with the reckless abandon of an all-you-can-eat buffet patron who doesn't realize the bill is coming. The result? Entire kelp ecosystems collapse, wiping out habitat for hundreds of species, disrupting fisheries, and even affecting global carbon storage. Because, surprise, kelp forests absorb massive amounts of CO2, making them essential in the fight against climate change. So, in reality, sea otters aren't just adorable fluffballs. They are ecosystem regulators, enforcers, and quite literally, the bouncers of the kelp forest, making sure sea urchins don't get out of hand. While apex predators like sharks and whales might be the ones that dominate headlines, the real guardians of the ocean are often the ones we don't even think about. Parrotfish and their relentless reef cleaning prevent coral reefs from suffocating. Sea otters and their absurdly high metabolisms stop kelp forests from turning into barren deserts. And it's not just them. Countless other overlooked species play a crucial role in keeping marine ecosystems balanced. Sponges filter water, keeping the ocean clean. Sea cucumbers recycle nutrients, breaking down organic material and preventing deep-sea pollution. Mantis shrimp regulate populations of small prey, ensuring species diversity remains stable. And yet, these creatures get none of the credit, even though without them, the ocean would be in absolute chaos. Imagine a world where parrotfish disappear, coral reefs die, beaches erode, and tropical ecosystems collapse. Imagine a world where sea otters vanish, kelp forests disintegrate, fish populations decline, and entire fisheries suffer. These unassuming creatures are the glue holding everything together, operating behind the scenes to make sure the ocean doesn't implode under its own weight. So the next time you're thinking about ocean conservation, don't just worry about saving sharks or whales. Think about the parrotfish chewing away at algae. Think about the sea otter cracking open urchins like a tiny furry vigilante. And think about all the hidden enforcers that keep the ocean from falling apart. Because sometimes the ones doing the most important work are the ones we overlook the most. The ocean is often portrayed as a wild, untamed abyss, a chaotic realm where creatures eat, fight, and survive in a lawless free-for-all. And to be fair, parts of it do resemble an underwater battle royale. But beneath the mayhem, beneath the swirling currents and dramatic predator-prey chases, there is a hidden order. An invisible network of rulers, enforcers, and ecosystem architects that keep the ocean from imploding on itself. These creatures, from tiger sharks regulating herbivores, to pufferfish reshaping the seabed, to parrotfish keeping coral reefs alive, may not get the same level of fame as great white sharks or giant squids. But they are the ones pulling the strings. They maintain balance, enforce structure, and keep marine life running like a well-oiled machine. But what happens if they vanish? What if these unsung heroes of the sea, the shadow government of the ocean, are wiped out? The short answer? Absolute carnage. The long answer? A downward spiral of destruction so ridiculous that even the most dramatic Hollywood disaster movies wouldn't be able to do it justice. Because without these key species, the delicate balance that has kept ocean life thriving for millions of years falls apart faster than a sandcastle in a tsunami. Let's start with the seagrass kingpin, the tiger shark. As we know, tiger sharks aren't just apex predators. They are the enforcers of the seagrass meadows, keeping sea turtles and dugongs in check. Their presence alone is enough to prevent these herbivores from grazing entire meadows into oblivion. But take tiger sharks out of the picture and things get ugly, fast. With no looming predator to keep them on the move, sea turtles become lazy little lawnmowers, munching away at seagrass meadows until there's nothing left. And when the seagrass dies, the consequences don't just stop at turtles suddenly realizing they've eaten themselves out of a home. Seagrass meadows are some of the most powerful carbon-storing habitats on the planet, absorbing more carbon dioxide than rainforests. Remove them, and you're not just wiping out a habitat, you're helping accelerate climate change. On top of that, entire fish populations dependent on seagrass vanish, and the cascading effect continues up the food chain. What started as, oh no, no more tiger sharks, quickly snowballs into an ecosystem-wide disaster, all because we underestimated how one predator quietly kept everything in balance. Now, let's talk about parrotfish, the reef custodians and sand factories of the ocean. These scrappy little fish do two incredibly important things. They prevent coral reefs from being suffocated by algae, and they poop out the very sand that makes up tropical beaches. Take them out of the equation, and it's algae anarchy. Without parrotfish chomping away, coral reefs get overrun with algae, smothering the corals and preventing them from receiving enough sunlight. In a matter of years, what was once a thriving, colorful reef teeming with life turns into a lifeless, algae-covered wasteland. And, as a bonus disaster, say goodbye to some of the world's most stunning white sand beaches. Remember, a large chunk of that sand comes from parrotfish poop. Without them, there's no more natural sand replenishment, and the once pristine shores start eroding away. So next time you're lying on a tropical beach, just know that you're technically sunbathing on fish poop, but also that you should be grateful for it. Our tiny architectural masterminds, the pufferfish, may seem too small to make a real difference, but without them, the ocean loses some of its most intricate and carefully curated seabed landscapes. Their sand mandalas don't just attract mates, they also help structure marine habitats, influencing how sediment settles and providing shelter for other small marine creatures. Without them, parts of the seafloor would become unstable, shifting too unpredictably for smaller fish and invertebrates to thrive. Sure, it wouldn't be the most immediate catastrophe, but it would be like suddenly removing all the interior designers and landscapers from a city. Everything just starts looking chaotic and unlivable. Now let's head to colder waters and imagine a world where sea otters no longer exist. At first you might think, well, that's sad, but how much damage can one fluffy animal's disappearance really cause? Oh, if only you knew. Sea otters are the only thing keeping kelp forests from being turned into lifeless, barren wastelands. Their favorite meal? Sea urchins. And sea urchins, if left unchecked, are the most reckless, gluttonous consumers of kelp you will ever meet. Without sea otters keeping them in check, sea urchins multiply at an insane rate, feasting on kelp forests until nothing is left. What was once a lush underwater jungle, home to countless fish, seals, and marine birds, turns into an empty, rocky wasteland. And kelp forests aren't just pretty. They play a crucial role in absorbing CO2 and protecting coastlines from erosion. So, with the otters gone, you don't just lose a cute animal, you lose an entire habitat, a natural climate buffer, and one of the ocean's most important ecosystems. The ocean may seem vast, endless, and resilient, but it depends on an intricate web of life, one that is delicately balanced and easily disrupted. Every species plays its role, and when key players like tiger sharks, parrotfish, sea otters, and pufferfish vanish, the damage doesn't stop at their disappearance. It sets off a chain reaction, like knocking over the first domino in an unthinkable collapse. Take out the top predators and prey populations explode, leading to overgrazing, habitat destruction, and unchecked population imbalances. Remove the species that keep ecosystems clean, and algae, sediment, and invasive species take over, suffocating marine habitats. And worst of all, these disasters aren't confined to the ocean. The ocean isn't some separate, distant entity. It is intertwined with global climate, fisheries, economies, and human life itself. When it falls apart, we feel the consequences, whether it's through worsening climate change, collapsing fish stocks, or entire coastlines eroding into the sea. The biggest mistake humans make when thinking about the ocean is assuming it's a free-for-all, an ungoverned world where nature just does its thing. But in reality, the ocean has a government, not in the form of laws and treaties, but in the creatures that silently control balance and structure. Without these hidden rulers, the shadow government of the sea, everything collapses. And yet, despite their importance, many of these species are under threat, facing destruction from overfishing, climate change, and habitat loss. If we don't protect them, the ocean doesn't just change, it deteriorates, unraveling in ways that will eventually come back to haunt us all. So the next time you see a shark, an otter, a parrotfish, or even a tiny pufferfish, remember, they're not just another marine creature, they're part of the system that keeps the ocean, and by extension us, alive. So don't be that person who gets outsmarted by a fish. Subscribe, hit the notification bell, and join us for the next deep sea conspiracy. Because in the ocean, nothing is what it seems.